Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The fleeing assassin didn't notice the shadow in the sky at all. He didn't expect Chen Ming to be able to fly. He didn't expect Chen Ming to be able to lock his position so quickly in the chaos outside. With the dull hammering sound that Chen Ming was very familiar with, one of the assassin's calves was separated from his body. The blood sprayed from the broken limbs extended several meters behind the assassin, who fell forward due to inertia. After breaking the assassin's leg, the bullet of the electromagnetic javelin continued to be deeply embedded in the underground of the space station city. Although the space station was designed to support the construction of a city at the beginning, the strength and support capacity of the ground are quite strong. However, the ultra-high penetration performance of the electromagnetic javelin modified by Chen Ming still allowed the projectile to penetrate the ground easily. It would take some effort to dig it out. At this moment, the assassin, who fell to the ground with a broken leg, did not give up struggling. He picked up the pistol with one hand and tried to support his body with the other hand. But in the next moment, the gun in his hand and his palm were completely smashed with another hammer blow. The assassin's face was full of pain, but he still barely straightened his upper body with the elbow of his broken arm, and the other intact hand still wanted to reach his waist. But Chen Ming would never give him any chance to resist. The projectile of the electromagnetic javelin shattered his remaining palm again. This time, the violent impact even pulled his arm and swung it in a circle, causing him to fall directly on his back on the ground. Blood was all over the assassin's surroundings, and he completely lost the ability to resist. In his eyes, at this moment, only Chen Ming was flying in the sky, and the electromagnetic javelin locked on him in Chen Ming's hand. His last thought before he fell into a coma was regret. At this time, the bar security, led by Glasses, finally drove to the scene according to Chen Ming's instructions. They successfully controlled the assassin before he lost too much blood, bandaged him and stopped the bleeding, and did not let him die. However, the chaos caused by the gunshot just now has not ended. After all, less than 2 minutes have passed since the gunshots were fired until the assassin was solved by Chen Ming. The people from the space station administration have not had time to arrive. In addition to the reason for the assassin's shooting at the beginning, the current chaos is actually related to Chen Ming. After the gunshots were fired, many people saw Chen Ming wearing a set of obvious combat power armor, flying in the no-fly zone of the space station. He even used a weapon to cut a person into a human stick. This does not look like the chaos can be quickly calmed down. However, as the assassin fell into a coma, the gunshots subsided. There are still many brave people gathering at the place where the accident happened. After all, they are people living on the pirate space station. Even if they are not pirates, they are much braver than people in serious places when facing such things. In addition, several bar security guards wearing glasses are still giving emergency medical measures to the assassin. They don't look like they are going to kill people, so the onlookers are even braver. I could still vaguely hear people who had been drinking in the bar spreading the news of what they had just seen. Chen Ming, who was flying in the air, naturally became the main topic of discussion among the crowd. Chen Ming also knew that he could not continue to attract attention in the sky, so he slowed down the output power of the jetpack and slowly landed around the Glasses. Seeing this, Glasses quickly stood up from the assassin's side and bowed slightly to Chen Ming, saying, "Mr. Chen Ming, how do you deal with this person?" After all, the assassin had obviously intended to assassinate Chen Ming, so he must ask Chen Ming's opinion. Just hand it over to Boss Wu. Chen Ming was not good at interrogation, so this kind of thing should be left to reliable people. Relying on Chen Ming's power armor and the electromagnetic javelin in his hand, that was enough to serve as a small weapon for ships. Glasses and his men quickly squeezed the crowd outside with the assassin and carried the person to the bar's car. But they didn't have time to leave. A medium-sized shuttle with the administration logo had landed nearby. Following it, a red and white medical shuttle with sirens flashing also landed nearby. Because Chen Ming had informed the factory director and the boss in advance, the people from the administration arrived at the scene about 4 minutes after the incident broke out. It was fast enough. A team of guards wearing better equipment than before quickly came down from the medium-sized shuttle. Several people from the guard team approached immediately. They quickly drove away the crowd, just like when Yu Hui deliberately released a ship to self-detonate and carry out a terrorist attack, causing the dock to be blocked, and pulled up the blockade. Only Chen Ming and the glasses were left, and they left directly because they felt uncomfortable. A person who was probably the captain of this team came forward and asked Chen Ming, who was wearing power armor, "Is this Mr. Chen Ming?" "It's me." After Chen Ming admitted it, the captain said again, "The deputy director asked me to say hello to you on his behalf. We will help you block the news of this incident. Fortunately, it happened in this neighborhood and didn't spread out in time. It shouldn't have a large-scale impact. But please keep this matter confidential." "Okay, thank him for me." The captain pointed to the medical shuttle next to him and asked, "Do you need medical assistance?" Chen Ming didn't even need to turn his head to confirm the assassin's condition and said, "Yes." The captain greeted the doctor on the medical shuttle, then saluted Chen Ming and turned around to take his team members to deal with other things. They also need to confirm the assassin's situation along the way, as well as everything that happened at the bar at the beginning. Sort out the whole picture of the whole thing, write a report and submit it. Then modify the report to a suitable form according to the arrangement of the superiors. After receiving the captain's signal, several doctors and nurses dragged the assassin onto their medical shuttle. The assassin's injuries were treated again urgently. Broken hands and a leg are not minor injuries, and there is no way to treat them without professional medical equipment. The casual treatment of glasses and the others just now only temporarily stopped the assassin's bleeding. If no follow-up treatment is carried out, the assassin may die at any time. Fortunately, the skills of the doctors of the administration are relatively reliable, and there are also professional quota equipment on the shuttle, which quickly rescued the man from the brink of death. However, what awaits him may be something more terrible than death. The captain later confirmed with Chen Ming whether he needed other help, and after confirming that there was no need, he let Chen Ming go directly. Only a security guard who followed out was left to cooperate with the store manager who was still in the bar to deal with things. It has to be said that it is really comfortable to do many things if you have connections with the upper level. If Chen Ming did not have these connections, then he would not be able to take the assassin away intact, and he might have to go to the bureau with the people of the administration. Fortunately, the hypothetical situation did not happen. Chen Ming can still take the assassin, who has been out of danger of life with the powerful medical technology of this era, to Glass's car. Together with several security guards, he went to the boss's place. When Chen Ming got in the car, he dismantled the power armor and sat in the passenger seat in casual clothes. The driver's glasses kept peeking at Chen Ming through the corner of his eyes and the side mirror, but Chen Ming didn't care. He just touched his forehead, where he was hit by the bullet. There was not even a red mark left here. His long-term training of psychic power was meaningful after all. From the beginning, he only mastered the abilities of repair and transformation. Until now, he can skillfully use the ability of manufacturing at will. He is no longer the little scoundrel who was powerless. Of course, it was also because of the spiritual awakening nerve he absorbed. But this was also an opportunity that Chen Ming found with everything he had mastered. This sudden assassination was just a small episode for him now. An hour later, Chen Ming sat in the boss's hardware store, looking at the new star-level blueprint displayed on the terminal in his hand. He was thinking about how to realize the value of this blueprint. At this moment, the boss suddenly walked out of the room in the hardware store and said to Chen Ming, "The result is out. It is indeed the subordinates of the few people in the war zone who have a grudge against you, but it is not a premeditated assassination. It is just something that the people in the war zone do privately. This person is considered a spy and has his own job, but he doesn't need to go to work today, so he just found a place to kill time, and then he noticed you. Your name is still very noticeable in the war zone, and it seems that they have a reward for you. So this person couldn't help it when he saw your head and thought about taking action directly. The result is like this." Chen Ming turned off the terminal in his hand and asked, "Is it an accident?" The boss clicked. The leader said, "It was an accident." "Then how should this matter be handled?" "How else can it be handled? In addition to his death, many other people have to accompany him on the road." Chen Ming didn't quite understand and asked, "What does it mean?" It means that the people in the war zone took the initiative to expose all the people on a line related to him. So basically everyone on this line has to die. It was the war zone that took the initiative to do so. So even if this matter is not an accident, it can only be an accident. After hearing this, Chen Ming became even more confused and asked, "Why do you say that? And don't they want me to die? Why would they be willing to lose so many people when the assassination failed? And there is no contribution?" Because they acted in a place where they shouldn't have acted. The boss looked at Chen Ming, patted his chest and said, "You are now my protected person. If you go out, it's your life or death. But if you are in my territory, no one can move. If you dare to move, you must pay the price. It's not as simple as a life. Just like now, you are alive, and you have captured the assassin who assassinated you. I have interrogated the result here, and it's still in my territory. Then the person who did this must pay the price. If they don't pay the price, I will go to them personally to ask for it. But my territory on the space station is only this hardware store and that bar. Oh, you can also count the first half of the maintenance plant. So this guy is not lucky." The boss said that he seemed to be in thought, a special person, because he was a major empire and a very special imperial general. Chen Mingwei nodded. He just knew where Bai Quan was special from the factory director. "Do you know how many people died when Bai Quan was injured by accident?" After thinking about it, I said, "I guess 50. It is 132, and all people who are implicated with this matter need to bear this responsibility for their commanders who have been killed by Bai Quan." Although there was almost an estimate in advance, Chen Ming still felt a bit outrageous when he heard this number, because these are not civilians outside, but people who definitely hold military positions within the 14th Corps. Human life is really worthless. It's worthless. The boss agreed with Chen Ming's words very much, and then said, "Then you are also a special person now." "Is that so? Is that second generation also a special person?" "He is nothing. He is just his family who took the initiative to force him to do something for their own interests and used him as an excuse. Those who died because of him are either idiots who participated in it, or poor ghosts who are deeply trapped and can't escape. That second generation can only be regarded as a poor ghost." The boss suddenly changed the subject and said, "But you or Bai Quan are different. You don't need to take revenge when you have problems. As long as you show a little interest, someone will help you do what you should do. Like this matter now, even if I don't deal with it, there will be others who will help you make the people over there pay the price." Chen Ming asked again, "Why is this?" "Because someone in the empire already knows you. Your ability has very important value and significance to the empire. Some people will help you for profit, but some people will help you so that the entire human race can win the war with you. Hui. If I don't do this, others will do it, so I will definitely do it myself. You have to pay attention to one thing. If you want to enjoy the help given to you by others, you will have to pay a price in the future. The people in front of me just mentioned may just want you to make money for them, but for the people behind, you may have something to do." Chen Ming nodded clearly, looked at the boss and said, "Boss, what's the matter? What price do I need to pay for you to help me?" The boss paused, looked at Chen Ming and said, "To be honest, you have been paying a price." "Okay." Before Chen Ming could think about what the boss meant, the boss reached out and patted Chen Ming on the shoulder. "If one day you really can't make it outside, just yell on the road and I guarantee that a lot of people will give you a lot of benefits and beg you to go to their side. But if you have a chance, remember to come to my place." Chen Ming thought about it seriously and said, "I don't think there will be such a day. That would be the best." "Okay, this matter is almost over. It's just a little spy who suddenly had a whim to make trouble. You said you had something else to do before, right? Go and do it. I'll tell you if there is anything else later." Chen Ming said, "Actually, I plan to come to you after I find Lao Wu." "Like this? Okay, you tell me." Chen Ming took out his Ming and said, "It's about psychic weapons. I tried it before, and it really has a good effect on my spiritual power. When using spiritual power, I can clearly feel that the mental power consumption is reduced." "But didn't you say before that you can embed spiritual stones on it?" The boss quickly understood what Chen Ming meant and said, "I did say that, And then you found that your spirit stone was too big to be embedded in the gun, right? Yes. That's easy. Just wrap the spirit stone with your mental power and squeeze it. Spirit stone is generally composed of spiritual energy and ordinary stone materials, or some strange materials. You use your mental power to compress the spiritual energy inside it, and then wear away the ordinary materials outside the stone to achieve the compression effect. The boss took out his palm-sized gentle spirit stone and applied a huge amount of mental power to it in front of Chen Ming. In a blink of an eye, the water patterns outside the gentle spirit stone all dimmed, and the outer stone layer quickly turned into powder. The boss blew a breath, revealing the spirit stone that had been compacted into the size of a marble and covered with patterns. Like this, the boss put away the spirit stone and said, "Remember to pay attention to it. The stronger the spirit stone is, the more mental power it needs to compress it. If you can't compress it all at once, you can do it in multiple times. Also, during the compression process, you will feel the nature of the spirit stone for a long time. I remember that your stone has a negative effect, right? Pay attention to this." The boss glanced at Chen Ming's pistol and said, "When the spirit stone is affected by the psychic effect of the psychic weapon, the amplification effect of the psychic weapon on you will become stronger because of the amplification of the spirit stone. And the effect of the spirit stone itself will also be enhanced by the influence of the psychic weapon. This is mutually influential. The spirit stone can decide whether to exert influence on the enemy or provide you with a bonus based on its own properties. If you can find more spirit stones, then choose the right stone and put it on. It would be the best. Generally speaking, I think you are more suitable for the spirit stone that adds to yourself. Of course, you can choose the spirit stone with negative effects for self-defense. You decide your weapon yourself. Anyway, if there is a better one, it doesn't mean that it can't be dismantled." Chen Ming listened silently and put these after digesting all the information. He asked, "Does this compression have any negative effects?" "Yes." "What is it?" "It's hard to find a spiritual stone that's too small if you lose it." The boss smiled and said, "Just kidding. The compression of the spiritual stone has no effect except consuming some of your mental power. I will definitely tell you about the disadvantages in advance, right? I can't do this to my own stone." Chen Ming nodded and said, "There is another problem. Bai Quan registered a psychic census website for me." The boss casually he waved his hand and said, "This website is useless. Just register it. This website will only be useful if you take the official route and the government route in the future. You can just pretend it doesn't exist at other times. As long as you are not anti-human, no one will come to you." Chen Ming silently crossed out a line on the notepad in his mind, and then said to the boss, "There is one last thing. It is the supply of materials that you mentioned before. I need to confirm the specific method with you." Chen Ming had already discussed the materials needed with the boss, and the transportation method had also been said to rely on himself. However, if he wants to transport materials in large quantities over long distances, some conditions must be met before it can be carried out. Chen Ming's psychic power is not space teleportation. Although it has a similar effect, it actually uses transformation to indirectly transport materials over long distances in this way. Therefore, Chen Ming needs some blueprints of some objects that can be attached with a large amount of materials to be transported, and will not have much impact on the properties of the materials. And when transporting materials, Chen Ming needs to concentrate the materials in the mechanical equipment he controls. Only in this way can he influence these materials. For example, the warehouse of the Supreme Point spacecraft, or a warehouse on the Pirate space station. The Pirate space station itself is a giant mechanical device, and Chen Ming can naturally control part of it. Of course, Chen Ming has not done this yet. After all, doing so is simply robbing things while slapping the company in the face. Chen Ming has no intention of completely breaking up with the company, so this kind of thing must not be done. But large-scale material transportation cannot be without mechanical equipment controlled by him. It is impossible for a cruiser-level spacecraft to be used specifically for Chen Ming as a material storage point. So although most of the things have been agreed in advance, it is better to ask the boss about such critical issues. Chen Ming roughly explained the specific situation. When the boss knew that his psychic power was no longer limited to the spacecraft, he was obviously a little surprised and seemed very satisfied with Chen Ming's progress. After thinking about it, he said, "This is easy. I can give you several warehouses in my colony for you to control. It will be convenient to concentrate the transportation of materials in my colony. Remember to contact me regularly in the early stage of development and tell me the situation on your side. If there is any problem, I can help to remedy it. If there is any missing materials, I can transfer them to you immediately. If you encounter anything interesting later, you can also tell me. The universe is so big. You will always encounter many things that you will never encounter in your lifetime in the Empire when you go out." Chen Ming immediately agreed, "Okay, I will. And I have to provide the data of the highest point regularly." "Oh, yes, if you didn't say it, I almost forgot. I will also send you a copy of the contact information of the newcomer. His name is Wang Qian." Chen Ming registered Wang Qian, a former researcher of tachyon technology, a current psychic of the Psychic Society, and a spacecraft designer, in the address book. Then he put away the terminal. In fact, the boss didn't need to say that he would definitely contact him frequently after he went out. In addition to the reason he just said for returning the data, there are actually other reasons. Even now, Chen Ming still clearly remembers the lonely journey of 6 months before that when he could not use hyperspace and could only use engines to travel through interstellar space. That was really a life-threatening journey. So Chen Ming knew that he had to keep in touch with others, otherwise he would definitely have psychological problems. Even if those afterglow individuals were with him, it would be the same. After all, they were not human. So even if the colony developed in the future, his connection with humans must never be cut off. While Chen Ming was talking to his boss about the future supply of materials, near the connecting line between the Gallo star field and the other 2 star fields, there is a galaxy that exists independently of the surrounding star fields. It belongs to the star field joint war zone that the Gallo star field has joined, and on a volcanic planet in this galaxy, under a dome that isolates the planet's extreme high temperature from the outside, inside the headquarters building of the star field joint war zone, in the office of the lieutenant general who had a conflict with Chen Ming. In addition to the lieutenant general here, there is also Zhang Feng, who was previously the deputy of the 2nd generation who was shot dead by Bai Quan and actually commanded the fleet of the 14th Corps, and the middle-aged woman who personally went to the psychic to check whether Chen Ming was still alive. The lieutenant general and the middle-aged woman sat around the coffee table in the office, and Zhang Feng stood behind the lieutenant general. On the coffee table in front of them were the documents of what happened an hour ago and the list of people they had just lost. The lieutenant general extended his index finger and pointed at the lines of personnel records that had been erased on the terminal and said to the middle-aged woman, "Tao Ying, do you still plan to continue at this time? We are almost in a period of liquidation now, and some of our subordinates have acted on their own and made us very passive." The middle-aged woman, Tao Ying, was obviously ready to argue with the lieutenant general and said, "There will be no chance in the future. We have already obtained information about the president of the Psychic Society. His location is in another star system near the Gallo star field. The purpose of his trip has been determined, which is to recruit a new psychic of atomic technology, but he did not leave after completing this task, but was still waiting for someone. There is only one person he is waiting for at this position, that is Chen Ming, who returned to the pirate space station of Cinda Corporation a few days ago." The lieutenant general waved his hand and said, "I know this, you don't need to repeat it to me. But you don't know that because of this matter, I have already arranged people on the hyperspace route from the Gallo star field to the president of the Psychic Association, and on the edge of that galaxy, ready to intercept Chen Ming." Towing put a few documents on the coffee table and pushed them to the lieutenant general. The documents were exactly the arrangements she had made before. But just now, the president of the Psychic Society suddenly left by boat and canceled the meeting with Chen Ming. There is only one possible reason for this situation. The news that we were going to intercept him halfway leaked out. There is a problem within us. Someone provided information to Chen Ming. No, it can't be said that it was provided to Chen Ming. Chen Ming's identity has been completely exposed. He is an ordinary person who was born as an orphan. He has no network of relationships and has climbed up purely by relying on psychic power. It must be someone else who is helping him, Bai Quan or Wuan. It is because of them that as long as we continue to drag it out, it will be even more impossible for us to kill Chen Ming. But Bai Quan needs to leave for a while to attend his lieutenant general promotion ceremony. The 14th Legion left here will react very slowly. Chen Ming is only protected by Wuan, which is more suitable for us to take action than if he is protected by both Wu and Bai Quan. The lieutenant general persuaded again. You have already said that your information has leaked. Chen Ming has been prepared. Is this a good opportunity? Towing obviously had no intention of giving up easily, and said, "Did you see the two ships in the pirate space station? One is the Glory of Afterglow, and the other is a new ship whose name is unknown. From the appearance, it can be determined that it is an exploration ship. Chen Ming is likely to leave the Empire and go somewhere else. This is our last chance." The lieutenant general suddenly took a photo of the high point just entering the space station dock on the table. I received the news when the ship just arrived at the space station. It was designed by the psychic who just joined the Psychic Society. It is obviously to be taken to the Edge star field for testing. And Chen Ming has no reason to sail out for exploration now. This ship is temporarily used to send Chen Ming to the president of the Psychic Society. Towing sneered, "You said so last time that Chen Ming is dead." The lieutenant general's face darkened and said, "Then take your say. What are you going to do?" "He is staying on the space station. Who knows when he will leave? If he just waits, Bai Quan will come back here after the promotion ceremony. Can you kill him when the 14th Corps can jump to support it anytime? When he jumps away with the two cruisers, do you dare to chase the jump traces? And can you guarantee that Bai Quan will not come to help him disrupt the jump traces? What can you use to chase him?" Towing saw that the lieutenant general had shown signs of loosening up and explained, "So I didn't plan to track him later. I wanted to force him out. You want to go to the space station? It's barely reasonable for us to kill Chen Ming outside the space station while Wuan hasn't reacted. You went to the space station purely to cross the line. Do you think our losses today are not enough? Unless you want to attract another psychic's revenge, you must not do this. And in addition to Wuan's revenge, you might as well consider the revenge of those who have set their eyes on Chen Ming's psychic power after we killed Chen Ming. He is no longer the Chen Ming who just escaped from the mining space station. He is not so easy to kill." Towing obviously had an idea and said, "Chen Ming has not controlled the main battleship yet, and his ability is not yet fully mature. If we kill him now, we can afford the revenge. As long as we can get back the relationship lost because of Chen Ming, we have the capital to make a comeback." The lieutenant continued to pour cold water. Then Wuan came to the door. Even if a psychic violates extremely serious laws, as long as he does not cross the real bottom line and is anti-human, the Empire will not pursue it too much. Other forces can also recruit him and give him. Besides, Wuan is originally a member of the Psychic Society. Such a loose force does not restrict members from joining other organizations. Their members also have private relationships. Who knows which psychic has a good relationship with which psychic in private? If we provoke them, we will offend several of them. Besides, there are only a few of us here. It's not like the entire war zone is on the same side with us. It will be very troublesome if we really retaliate. We shouldn't have taken action against Chen Ming." Towing didn't expect the lieutenant general to change his face so quickly. He could only continue with a stern face. "My previous preparations cannot be wasted. And as you said, it's really not easy for us to take action on the space station, but Wuan can't come to the war zone headquarters to take action against us. And we don't need to do it ourselves and let others bear Wuan's revenge. Then we must sacrifice enough people to be picked out." Towing clicked the terminal in front of him, displayed a person's file on it, and pushed it to the lieutenant general. "Lida, this person is important enough. Let him contact Zhuo Jing to provide them with funding, and let Zhuo Jing help us do things." Zhuo Jing? Chen Ming once had a conflict with Zhuo Jing. The lieutenant general waved his hand and said, "I know. When Zhuo Jing attacked the capital of the Gallo Star field before. Even if Zhuo Jing forced the person out, Wuan would definitely react. After the fleet goes there, we still have to deal with Wuan's problem. What are your plans? You have seen the fate of the Yuhui fleet that tracked Chen Ming to the pirate space station a few days ago. Tao Ying put the teacup that had just been put to his mouth heavily on the tea table, making a crisp sound. Of course I saw it, but I also know that the people in the Psychic Society are not monolithic. There are also people who hate him. Didn't we do that last time? Last time we had Sky Steel. What do you have this time? Can't we come up with something to ask the psychic to help? The lieutenant general rubbed his temples and suddenly exhaled, saying, "Whatever you want." Then it's settled. Within 2 days, I want to see Chen Ming forced out of the space station and sink in space with his ship. The lieutenant general warned for the last time. After this, whether we succeed or not, we must lie dormant. Some assets that could have been collected outside must also be abandoned. It's the price. Tao Ying nodded and closed several files that were open on the terminal. The wallpaper on her terminal desktop was revealed, which was a photo of the life of the second-generation Tang Shi who was once killed by Bai Quan. After seeing this photo, Tao Ying suddenly said hysterically, "It doesn't matter what the price is. I want Chen Ming to die." The lieutenant general shook his head slightly. Zhang Feng, who hadn't said a word the whole time, was expressionless and dazed. He had just seen the contents of the file. Li Da, who was chosen by the lieutenant general and Tao Ying, was a major general. But he was sentenced to death in a few casual words from the 2 lieutenant generals. And before his death, he got into trouble with Zhu Jing. He was wondering if he would have such a day. But he didn't show it, and didn't dare to show it. He could only think silently alone. Time passed quickly. 2 hours passed quickly. Chen Ming and the boss had already figured out the subsequent material transportation plan. Chen Ming only needed to send a Gamma-class core to the boss's colony. At that time, with the help of the Gamma core to control, Chen Ming didn't need to go there in person. It happened that when Chen Ming ran out from Yuhui before, he also brought a few Gamma cores with him, which was very convenient. And after leaving the boss, Chen Ming ran directly to the management bureau. The 5th floor of the administration is a special hospital, and Old Wu's ward is here. When Chen Ming heard that Old Wu was hospitalized, he thought something had happened to Old Wu, such as being hit by a stray bullet or a ricochet before he built the second power armor. As a result, the doctor handed him the examination report as soon as he came. It can be seen that the doctor has basically checked Old Wu from head to toe. Except for the liver damage caused by drinking too much, there is no problem. Moreover, the current technology can easily treat this kind of alcohol liver damage, and the doctor has also prescribed medicine for Old Wu. But Old Wu just used this excuse to lie in the hospital and didn't want to go out. Then the doctor hinted to Chen Ming that Old Wu was fine and he should get rid of him quickly. Chen Ming didn't know what to say. He responded to the doctor ambiguously and pushed open the door of Old Wu's ward. "Old Wu, how are you?" Old Wu, who was originally sitting on the bed and watching videos, immediately collapsed, looking like he could die at any time. Chen Ming ignored such a performance and slapped Lao Wu on the shoulder. Then an exoskeleton power arm appeared on his arm and lifted Lao Wu up. "Stop pretending. If you keep pretending, I'll go find the factory manager." "Stop." Lao Wu climbed up quickly. Chen Ming shook his head and said, "I heard the factory manager said you were hospitalized and came to see you. You were just pretending. Get out quickly and don't waste medical resources. This hospital is empty every day. There is no waste. If I don't stay, it will be a waste." Although Lao Wu said this, he stood up honestly and didn't seem to plan to stay any longer. After Chen Ming finished speaking, he looked around the ward and asked, "Where is the power armor?" "I left it in the bar. Otherwise, it would be difficult for me to take the ambulance here wearing this. I asked the people in the bar to help send it to the dock. It should be in the warehouse where we usually store goods. You will definitely see it when you turn around." Chen Ming can certainly see it, and he can dismantle the power armor and recycle the materials at any time. But he mentioned the power armor under his control now, not to find out where the power armor is, nor to get it back, but for other things. Chen Ming said directly to Lao Wu, "I'll give you that power armor to keep you safe. Although the previous assassination in the war zone was aimed at me, it may not be the case next time. It's better for you to take it, and this thing is not valuable to me. Also, don't do the pirate bounty yourself in the future, let others do it. Try to arrange a trustworthy person, as long as he can get the money and won't run away with the money." There are basically two kinds of gains from fighting pirates: the pirate's bounty and the ships they drive. Chen Ming can drive the ship back directly, as long as his fleet brings an engineering ship and a gamma core. Only sending pirates to collect bounties is something that really needs people to do. Because of Chen Ming, Lao Wu may not be safe staying on the space station now, let alone going somewhere else. Although the boss just said that it was the people under the war zone who got hot-headed and assassinated. But the war zone reacted so quickly, Chen Ming still couldn't say whether the high-level officials of the war zone were involved. So it's better to keep a hand and leave Lao Wu some means to save his life. But Lao Wu himself has to pay attention, otherwise if he doesn't have time to wear this power armor, it's like he doesn't have it. And Chen Ming also plans to arrange something for the factory director to use for self-defense, but we'll talk about it next time we meet. Lao Wu naturally accepted Chen Ming's gift. He immediately sent a message to the bar and said with a happy face, "That's no problem, and I'm always scared, don't worry." "Well, you'd better carry the terminal I gave you with you, and contact me if anything happens. I came here to talk to you about this, and I have something else to do, so I'm leaving first. Have a good time." Chen Ming turned and walked out of the ward. But just as he left, he suddenly turned back and looked at the ward and said, "I have sent the news that you are fine to the factory director. If you don't want the factory director to come to you, leave quickly." After Chen Ming left, Lao Wu's action of lying on the bed again was stiff. He sighed and began to change his hospital gown. Then Chen Ming left with peace of mind, walked in the corridor of the hospital, and continued to think about what he would do next. There are still too many things to deal with in the next 2 days. If you don't finish all the things, it will be really terrible if you have to come back after leaving. He would rather spend more time on these things than come back to make up for it later. So Chen Ming's next plan was to go to Bai Quan, where he also had a lot of things to deal with. It happened that the time was about the same, and it was time for Bai Quan to rest. Just after Chen Ming made up his mind, the elevator of the building in front of him arrived at his floor. Chen Ming was stopped just as he was about to go in. The elevator was full of people, and they were all guards from the administration. They surrounded a fat figure, the director. The guard who stopped Chen Ming said to Chen Ming, "Sorry, it's full. Please take the next one." Chen Ming was not wearing a protective suit now, but casual clothes and a mask. He was dressed in a very common outfit in the hospital, so he was not recognized. Chen Ming nodded silently and stepped aside. Is the director so timid now? Chen Ming suddenly felt a little funny and pressed the button of another elevator. But at this time, he suddenly noticed that the director seemed to carry his computer with him. Before, Chen Ming asked the micro-robot to leave some broken parts in the director's computer, taking this opportunity to determine the location of the computer. What was he doing with the computer? Chen Ming did not look at the elevator that had not yet completely closed. Instead, he paid attention to the director's location while waiting for the arrival of another elevator. At the same time, he also started the micro-robot he left in the director's office. Chen Ming looked around through the robot and found that the office seemed to have been cleaned up, and it seemed to be cleaned up in a hurry. The whole office was a bit messy, and there was a lot of empty space. Is he going to run away? Chen Ming immediately hacked into the administration through the back door he had left behind. Through the elevator monitoring, it can be seen that in the elevator that the director took, the only button on the elevator that was lit was the top floor, not the floor of the director's office. Chen Ming immediately relied on the Trojan program that he had left in the director's computer and was transferred to his terminal without the director's attention. He looked through the director's terminal data. In it, Chen Ming found a file that had just been edited. This was the director's schedule for the future. He planned to take his cruise ship and leave the space station under the escort of the administration on the grounds of going home to visit relatives. The reason was not important. What was important was that the director really planned to run away. It was just that his cruise ship had always been only used by the director occasionally to rest, so it only maintained a very minimal ship state and could not carry out interstellar navigation at all. So the ship needs another day of maintenance to keep it in normal condition. The director is afraid of Chen Ming and plans to live outside in advance. As long as the ship is maintained, he will run away. Chen Ming has nothing to say. If it was in the administration, Chen Ming would have to think of a way to kill the director. But if it was on the spaceship, Chen Ming could kill people without knowing how. Moreover, he has been carrying several Gamma-class cores with him recently, so it is very easy to control a spaceship quietly. Chen Ming took the elevator to the outside of the administration building. He found an alley outside and built a micro-robot with a Gamma core installed. The task Chen Ming gave the micro-robot was very simple. Go to the dock, find the cruise ship, and control it. He is an employee of the maintenance plant, so it is too easy to contact a ship under maintenance. It happened that a shuttle flew out from the top of the building at this time, and the person on it should be the director. But since there is already a plan, Chen Ming doesn't care at all. The director's matter has been settled. Chen Ming returned to the top. After lunch, Chen Ming contacted by Quan. The communication was connected. Hello? Bai Quan's greeting was full of fatigue, but it seemed to make him very excited, as if something happy had made him so tired. So Chen Ming asked casually, "Are you okay?" "Very good, just a little busy with official business these days, and I have to prepare to attend a promotion ceremony later." "Promotion ceremony? Yours?" "Yes. You are going to become a lieutenant general, right?" "Yes. By the way, how old are you?" 34. "Are there any younger lieutenant generals?" "Yes, there are." Although he said so, Bai Quan still explained in a good mood. In the early days of the empire's development, there were many more opportunities than now, and promotions were fast at that time. But now you should be considered relatively rare, right? "Congratulations. When are you free? I will discuss something with you." Bai Quan said with a serious tone and obvious smile. "Thanks to you, I was able to be promoted so quickly, so if you have something to do, I am free anytime. Now is fine." "Then let's do it now. We have a lot of things to deal with." "Okay." Chen Ming flipped through the notebook in his mind. However, he did not rush to get straight to the point, but mentioned other things first. "By the way, is there any movement in the war zone recently?" Bai Quan recalled and said, "I haven't noticed any movement from them recently. It may be because of you that they suffered heavy losses. Not only did they lose Sky Steel, but many of their partners ran away. And they said you were dead before, but you are still alive. Your credit has basically been lost, and you can't make any waves. But I can't guarantee that they won't have any ideas about you. A lean camel is bigger than a horse. It's still possible for them to mess with you." "No action on the surface?" "Definitely not. I've been keeping an eye on them." "Okay." Chen Ming agreed and said, "Then let's talk about what happened before, starting with the earliest thing. The thing about Changxinghe that we talked about at the beginning." When Chen Ming mentioned Changxinghe, he subconsciously glanced at the dock of the space station. The buffalo filled with frozen escape pods is still parked near the brilliant class. Changxinghe and the other people from the 14th Legion that I took away before are now here at the pirate space station. I haven't released them yet. Do you want to pick them up yourself? Or do you want me to release them and let them go back by themselves?" Bai Quan hurriedly said, "Let me pick them up. You just keep them frozen." Changxinghe had a brain seizure and made a mistake before. He will receive the punishment he deserves when he returns. "Okay, then do you remember what you promised when we discussed Changxinghe's affairs before?" "Of course." Bai Quan responded quickly. "Your previous request was to learn fleet command techniques from us, and then get the highest standard of outstanding students in our military academy under normal circumstances. That is 4 escorts and a destroyer, as well as the opportunity to use professional facilities for simulated space combat. To be honest, I am a little afraid to let you touch the equipment now, but since I have already promised before, there is no problem here. As for the ship, I still owe you a cruiser, right? Let's talk about it together later. Now let's confirm first, how do you plan to learn? Or is it online as mentioned before?" Chen Ming answered without thinking too much, "Online, this is best." "Okay, just it is a bit troublesome to use the equipment later. But I can apply for a separate server group, connect to the simulation device in our hometown, and build it here in our base in the Gallows Starfield. The internal calculations are done there, and we are only responsible for scene rendering. It just so happens that this will be done sooner or later, and you can be the first user. Then with your special terminal, it should be no problem to maintain normal learning and training. I always have people here, and we can start at any time. If you have any opinions about the instructor, you can come to me directly." Or, when I am free in a while, I can also come to teach you in person. Chen Ming, hearing this, he couldn't help but ask, "You are a major general at least, and you will be a lieutenant general in the future. Do you have so much free time? How is that possible?" "That's why I said I would take time to come. Whether you can learn fleet command depends on your talent. After teaching the basic knowledge, it doesn't mean that I have to teach you every day. At most, I will practice with you in the simulation equipment." Chen Ming understood and said, "Is that so? Okay, then this matter is settled. Well, then there is the matter of ships. What do you think?" Chen Ming did not reply immediately, but asked back, "Will you give some strange ships to your students?" "What do you mean by strange ships?" "Not produced by the military itself, but by other companies." "Company," or simply Yu Hui's ship. Bai Quan thought for a while and said, "Generally speaking, we provide our own ships to outstanding students. After all, they are learning command techniques in our army. But there are indeed some special students who do not learn the ones commonly used by the army. If they want a ship, they can come according to their needs. As long as there are sufficient reasons, you can also ask for it. Even if we don't have Yu Hui's ship, you also know the conditions here. Unless you are willing to wait for a month or two, I will transfer it to you." "Forget it." Chen Ming immediately rejected Bai Quan's kindness. He couldn't wait for a month or two. So Chen Ming simply said what he thought, "I want the storm from Tachyon Technology." Bai Quan said subconsciously, "Rob the money. A storm costs nearly 200 million. I remember you said before that money is not important. It depends on the time. When I talked to you before, I thought you were a psychic and I was an ordinary major general. But now I have to consider the whole station here, so it must be different. But if you really want the storm, I will definitely give it to you." "Are all 4 escort storms?" "Yes, this ship is very good." "Terminator drone. Well, it looks good with your ability. What about the destroyer?" Chen Ming had said before having already thought about it. He blurted out, "Your special law enforcer should be the most capable destroyer I know of. Defending the line. You have some knowledge of fleet combat. It's just the experience I summarized from watching several large-scale battles and the battle with Chung Xinghe. In fact, I think a ship like the Cowherd seems to be okay. After all, it is the largest destroyer." Bai Quan suddenly persuaded, "I don't recommend you to take the Cowherd, because the Cowherd must have a special ship position. Unless you equip the Cowherd with a mobile maintenance team in the future, otherwise you will have to find a way to deal with the problem of parking the ship wherever you go." "So which one do you want?" Chen Ming said readily, "Then let's go for the Enforcer." "Yes." Bai Quan wrote down Chen Ming's request and then asked, "What about the cruiser?" The cruiser is very important to Chen Ming now. So Chen Ming must think carefully before making a decision. He currently has a total of 6 cruisers: Brilliant Class, Radiant Class, Refraction Class, Supreme Point Class, and Colossus Class. There is also a Flash Class that was sent away by Chen Ming because the pirate space station could not stop after maintenance. Among them, the Colossus Class is a cargo ship, and the Supreme Point Class is an exploration ship. The remaining 4 are combat-type ships, each with its own focus. Brilliant has a strong firepower output capability. The Plasma Reserve System provides it with an extremely terrifying maneuverable energy weapon amplification effect. And the Flexible Radiant Class is more suitable for leading the fleet to run around, just like it did before in Yuhui. As for the Refraction Class, it is a heavy cruiser like the Ruler Class of the Army. Its main task is generally to hold the line in large-scale battles and output frontal firepower. Under normal circumstances, it is a protective ship for certain important locations. The last Flicker-class cruiser mothership carries the Starlight Unmanned Fighter, which has point defense weapons that are rare in other Afterglow ships. It is a cruiser that tends to be auxiliary and defensive. So what Chen Ming lacks the most now is the cruiser. In fact, it can still maximize Chen Ming's own abilities, and it is also the most resource-consuming ship type, the cruiser mothership. The auxiliary defense type of the Flicker class is not suitable for Chen Ming's psychic power. Only the offensive type of the Storm class equipped with the Terminator Unmanned Fighter is suitable. However, Chen Ming does not know many types of cruiser motherships, except for the Flicker class. A Mora-class cruiser mothership, which was once one of the cruisers in the fleet protecting the military outpost when Afterglow raided the outpost. The other type is called the Heron-class high-speed cruiser, which is a type of cruiser sold by the Cinda Company to the military. With its high maneuverability and special powerful sensors, it can provide extremely accurate enemy ship data for all fighters sent by Heron, improving their combat efficiency. So Chen Ming's choice. It was after he just asked Hui Huang if there were any useful cruisers. Hui Huang told him about a cruiser he had never heard of, the Stardust-class cruiser. According to Hui Huang, the Stardust-class ship is a ship produced by Tachyon Technology that only appeared on the front line where the Empire and Yu Hui's main forces fought on the other side. Chen Ming chose it for only one reason. Because Stardust and Storm have the same point, they are both equipped with offensive unmanned fighters. Storm carries the Terminator unmanned fighter, and Stardust carries the Meteorite unmanned fighter, which is as special as the Terminator. Although Yu Hui did not obtain too much data on this type of ship, it can be analyzed based on the battle situation that the Meteorite is as outrageous as the Terminator. This is definitely the best choice for Chen Ming. Bai Quan didn't care how Chen Ming knew about this kind of ship and immediately agreed, okay. Although the Stardust class is also a ship of Tachyon Technology Company, even if their 14th Corps buys it, the price is still expensive. However, when Bai Quan agreed to compensate Chen Ming with a cruiser, he was already prepared to bleed. Cruisers are not cheap anyway. After agreeing to Chen Ming's choice of cruiser, Bai Quan continued, then the latest one. I said before that as long as the request is reasonable, you can ask for it. What do you think? Chen Ming didn't speak, because he couldn't figure out what he wanted. After all, Bai Quan had obtained some data of the Nova class before and destroyed 2 Yu Hui battleships including Nova. Such an achievement that can make a major general promoted to a lieutenant general really makes Chen Ming a little difficult to estimate how much it is worth. Moreover, for Chen Ming, it seems unnecessary to have more psychic weapons, and it seems a bit too little to ask for another cruiser, and Chen Ming has no ability to control more cruisers. There is no need for more Afterglow individuals, because Chen Ming is having trouble arranging the work of the 4 Afterglow cores on hand. Spiritual stones with specified characteristics seem to be okay, but Chen Ming's demand for spiritual stones is not that great. The crazy language spiritual stone alone is enough for Chen Ming's daily exercise and self-defense. Is there any good choice? The boss said before that he could choose something related to psychic energy, and spiritual stones are not very good. So Chen Ming thought for a long time and asked tentatively, awakening the spirit nerve? Hiss. Chen Ming heard Bai Quan's breath and asked, can it be done? Chen Ming's request just hit the line in Bai Quan's heart. So Bai Quan thought for a while and said, yes, but I can only give you artificial ones, and it may take a few days. It's really possible. Chen Ming didn't expect that Bai Quan would agree to his casual suggestion. And for him, artificial ones are better. Natural spiritual awakening nerves are probably all taken from other people, and they may have some strange spiritual energy. So Chen Ming immediately said, enough. Okay, but what do you want this thing for? It should be used for eating. Bai Quan took the initiative to think of Chen Ming's words as absorption. Although Bai Quan heard from the psychics, he knew that actively absorbing spiritual awakening nerves is a way to quickly improve mental power. And it will cause one's own mental power to mix with other messy mental powers, which requires a long time to organize and digest. Otherwise, it will cause problems in the use of spiritual power. And absorbing spiritual awakening nerves itself is a dangerous thing. But since it was Chen Ming, Bai Quan felt that he didn't need to say more. By the way, don't forget the refraction-class ship you parked with me. Of course I didn't forget. But this ship may have to stay with you for a few more days. The pirate space station here can only park 2 cruisers at most. There is no room. One brilliant and one high point filled the 2 cruiser slots in the entire dock tightly. Chen Ming had to wait until he left the space station before calling refraction to set off together. That's fine. A Yu Hui cruiser does not require any maintenance. It just takes up a slot. It is nothing to the 14th Legion. Bai Quan agreed to help Chen Ming stay for a few more days and then asked, so what are your plans for the future? If you are worried about any problems in the war zone, you can come to me. You are always welcome here. Not necessary for now. Bai Quan's recruitment was rejected by Chen Ming, If everything goes well for me in the future, there should be no safer place. Oh, what are your plans? If it's hard to say, don't say it. Then don't say it. You will definitely know in the future. In 2 days, Chen Ming will most likely disappear directly in the empire. Bai Quan will definitely know where he ran to after a little thought. Okay, that's about it. This time I came to you to tell you basically these. I wish you to become a general soon. That's too difficult. Bai Quan smiled and hung up the phone. Chen Ming, who was at the highest point, stretched and took a breath. The things that troubled other people have basically been dealt with, and the historical problems that have been left until now have also been solved. So now, he should also deal with the rest of his own things. First and foremost, what Chen Ming needs to do when he leaves the space station to find a galaxy to build a colony, and what he needs to do during the process of building the colony. Although the development of the colony needs someone to keep an eye on it, it does not mean that he needs to keep an eye on it 24 hours a day. All Chen Ming needs to do is to guide the colony and let it develop in the direction he thinks is better. In fact, the entire colony will definitely be managed by Hui Huang at that time. So Chen Ming should have a lot of free time. Then Chen Ming must do something, such as developing himself, learn more technology, and study more things. Before, Chen Ming brought out a lot of research equipment from Yu Hui's Research Institute, which has been installed at the highest point by him, but this is definitely not enough. Before, Yu Hui mainly asked Chen Ming to study things that their own research progress was not ideal, and the research equipment there all had a focus. But Chen Ming did not want to follow Yu Hui's ideas. He wanted to study what he wanted to study. But he has not thought about the details yet. It is better for him to buy the research equipment he wants to add according to his own research direction. And when conducting research, Chen Ming must also consider the alpha-class afterglow he brought out from the giant dock. Because Chen Ming couldn't help but look at the panels of several alpha afterglow cores he had on hand. And the alpha-class afterglow obtained from the giant dock is very special. Afterglow Alpha-class AI Core, 2 UAA1, Mazax. Manufacturer, Afterglow BP, 55 Colony Far North Industrial Production Center. Alpha-class Core Bonus, Research Hub. Self-awareness, Existence. Computing Power, Galaxy Level. Executable Operations, None. When Chen Ming saw the name of the Core Bonus, he knew that this Alpha Afterglow was not a combat type, but a more logistical research type. The effect is also very simple, increasing the computing power of any type of research by 15%. This number doesn't sound big, but think about it carefully. All random research, as long as it is a research, has a 15% research speed bonus, which is not necessarily worse than the brilliant galaxy coordination. And it can be added by Chen Ming in the future. There are 5 core bonuses in total. Ship Specialization, Industrial Specialization, Weapon Specialization, Advanced Technology, Galaxy Main Force. The first 3 are design-type bonus options. You can give it 30% computing power in different specialized fields and increase its research speed again. This is also a very terrifying bonus. Then the effect of this advanced technology is slightly different from the research type. It strengthens the computing power of the core and industry and improves the final quality of industrial products, including spacecraft. And Galaxy Main Force can improve the computing power when performing work related to the main ship, which is also the basis for it as a designer of the new star. This Alpha Afterglow itself is the afterglow left in the giant dock when the new star was launched before. It seems that there is no problem in being responsible for ship design and subsequent manufacturing work. That is, its existence must be carefully considered by Chen Ming. The purchase of research equipment must also take its existence into consideration. Chen Ming's current idea is to let it continue to carry out the research on the spacecraft technology of Yu Hui, while he himself will carry out the research on the spacecraft technology of mankind. Therefore, this requires a considerable amount of research equipment. Originally, Chen Ming thought that he didn't need to bother others for the scientific research equipment he used, and he could buy it himself. But considering this Alpha-class Yu Hui, the equipment that Chen Ming originally planned to use for himself was not enough, and it seemed that he would have to go to Lao Wu again. Chen Ming made a list on the terminal. Since this was going to be purchased in large quantities, he didn't have to worry about it or choose. just buy all the research equipment that he could currently consider and could use in the future. The total number was a bit more, at least more than he had thought before. And the value should only be more expensive than industrial equipment. Fortunately, Chen Ming didn't need to provide a bunch of the same equipment, like he provided industrial equipment to the colony. He only needed to buy one copy of these research equipment. The money needed is definitely not the same level as buying industrial equipment. In addition to the equipment used for research, there is another thing that Chen Ming needs to prepare. Star map. Although the Empire did not continue to expand in the direction of the Gallo star field, various large-scale detectors have been recording the galaxies outside the territory. Chen Ming had better master the information of these galaxies in advance and conduct a survey of colonies that can be colonized based on the density and types of galaxies within the star field. Chen Ming wants to find a good galaxy to build a colony. Similar to the capital of the star field, there are several high-value planets, and all kinds of resources can basically be gathered. As long as it develops, it can be self-sufficient and does not need to continue to contact the human empire. This will definitely be very difficult, and it will take a lot of time to explore. So the star map is very necessary, which can save a lot of exploration time and abandon some galaxies where it is impossible to have suitable planets. Star maps are generally easy to get. But if Chen Ming wants some more detailed star maps that are farther away from the Empire, he must find a way to get them through connections. Chen Ming still has 1 or 2 days to use, which should be enough to get it done before the president contacts him for the second time. Although he has dealt with a lot of things, it is obvious that Chen Ming still has to keep busy. A few hours later, on the night after Chen Ming talked to someone he knew again, in the number 1 space arm of the pirate space station, an ordinary destroyer-class cargo ship arrived here. Although the management of the pirate space station is very loose, this kind of destroyer-level cargo transportation still needs to be inspected by the administration. Otherwise, if you just transport some deadly things up, will the space station still be able to handle it? So when the ship entered the ship's position, immediately, someone from the administration came out of their office near the maintenance plant. A small team of people planned to go over to confirm. But when they were halfway there, the leader's walkie-talkie suddenly rang. He answered the call immediately and said, "Director." The director calmly said to him, "Don't worry about the ship that just entered the port, and don't check it." But isn't the rule? Rules are dead, people are alive. Rules are there and can't be changed, but people can be changed and can be circumvented. The captain and several team members around him looked at each other and said, "Yes." He gave up on checking the ship. He really didn't need to lose his job for a ship or some strange competition above. However, after the captain returned to the office, he still saved a file in the computer and transferred it to the database of the ships that needed to be inspected after entering the port. But what he didn't know was that this file was also deleted quietly without anyone noticing. The next day came quickly. Chen Ming's own fleet had been sent out to look for traces of pirates in other parts of the star field. He had also purchased some of the research equipment he needed at the space station. Of course, it was black goods. The price was quite good, and it had been installed at the highest point. The batch of materials that the boss specially sent to the pirate space station almost filled up the warehouse at the highest point. All the preparations before departure had been completed. But Chen Ming was still running around today, mainly because the 5 billion given by the company was directly received very efficiently. And Lao Wu had basically determined the price of the industrial facilities that Chen Ming wanted to order. He also helped Chen Ming determine the price of the research equipment. It can only be said that money is really not easy to spend. After all these things are done, there will probably be about 400 to 500 million left. However, Chen Ming cannot use this money to replenish his own fleet. After all, there may be a shortage of materials in the colony in the future, and this money must be used as emergency money. Time flies, and another day has passed quickly in the blink of an eye. At noon on this day, the boss took the initiative to contact me. The president is ready to talk to Chen Ming again. Chen Ming quickly went to the boss's side. The boss was already waiting for him. The terminal that Chen Ming had given him before was standing on the table, and the boss had asked him for a new terminal before, which had been sent to the president. With the help of psychic power, Chen Ming could create an almost real-time communication effect, with only a delay of less than half a second. And the communication confidentiality effect was definitely the best in the entire empire. Chen Ming sat on the chair next to the boss. As long as he wanted, he could start the second communication with the president at any time. Chen Ming glanced at the boss, and after seeing the boss nod slightly, he activated his psychic power. After the terminal screen in front of him flashed, Chen Ming successfully connected the terminal in front of him and the terminal on the president's side to the instrument. The picture on the president's side appeared in Chen Ming's eyes. The background seemed to be a lounge in a research institute. The president was sitting on the sofa in the lounge. He wore a pair of square-framed glasses and a white coat, and looked like a very stable middle-aged man. Judging from his appearance, he is no more than 35 years old, about the same age as Bai Quan. Chen Ming initially thought that the president was at least 40 or 50 years old. Maybe he has been dormant for a long time, or maybe he has taken good care of himself. Chen Ming is not sure, but it doesn't matter. He greeted him first. "Hello, President." "Hello, Chen Ming." The president looked Chen Ming up and down, and then transferred several files to the terminal in front of him while talking, so that Chen Ming could read these files about what they talked about last time. "This time, through the confidential communication achieved by your psychic power, I can tell you some things that I didn't say last time. Then let's start with the purpose of condensing the source of psychic energy that we talked about last time." Chen Ming nodded and listened quietly. The most basic effect of condensing the spiritual energy source is to create an environment with high concentration of mental power and spiritual energy fluctuations. You should have felt it when you obtained it. Chen Ming nodded again to confirm. Although the condensed spiritual energy source in his hand was in an environment with active and chaotic spiritual energy fluctuations when it was just formed, he did not notice it at the first time. However, when he found the condensed spiritual energy source and took it away, the spiritual energy fluctuations on it were very conspicuous. And the condensed spiritual energy source has the same characteristics as the spiritual stone that resonates with Chen Ming. Chen Ming can limit the emission of its spiritual energy fluctuations through the connection between his own spiritual power and it. Therefore, when Chen Ming has been training his spiritual power recently, he will first use the condensed spiritual energy source to create an environment with high-intensity spiritual energy fluctuations. Then he uses the crazy language spiritual stone that he can't bear the effect until now to train, and the effect is very good. The second effect of condensing the spiritual energy source is relatively complex and more difficult to achieve. I mentioned before that another person I know who has it chose to use this effect. Specifically, it is to use the condensed spiritual energy source and spiritual energy and some other materials to actively build a spiritual stone of his own through extreme compression of mental power. Hearing this, Chen Ming couldn't help but say, "Is this considered an artificial spiritual stone?" Yes, this is also the only known way to completely artificially create spiritual stones. But unlike ordinary spiritual stones, his spiritual stone shows his own emotions. Completely artificial? The president smiled at Chen Ming and said nothing. Chen Ming also wisely skipped the topic of artificial spirit stone and focused on the second half of the president's words. "I feel that a spirit stone that changes according to emotions seems not appropriate. Everyone's emotions are ever-changing, and under normal circumstances, there will not be extreme emotions that can make spirit stones have extremely strong effects. Such a spirit stone whose effect may change at any time is indeed not appropriate, but the psychic who possesses it does not have these problems to consider because of his own psychic power." The president did not say more, and Chen Ming did not ask. Psychic power is the essence of psychics after all, and people who are not familiar with it can only understand the general idea at most. Such spiritual stones are collectively called original spiritual stones. It is connected to the origin of psychics, so this kind of spiritual stone will also be infected with the nature of psychics like ship spirits. So for ordinary psychics, as long as they don't use it as ordinary spiritual stones, but as an auxiliary product to exert the nature of psychic energy, it is still very promising. This is a more stable way to improve psychic energy than unstable existences such as ship spirits. After saying this use, the president didn't seem to want to continue. So Chen Ming couldn't help asking again, Is there no other use? Basically, even the destroyed civilization did not do a deep study on the condensation of the origin of psychic energy. According to the documents I found, there is only one use left that is not considered a use. You can feed the condensed psychic energy source to animals. It is much easier for animals to awaken psychic energy than humans, so this is almost a 100% success rate for cultivating psychic creatures. The boss interrupted at this time and said, "You don't need the one in your pocket. It is already a psychic creature." Chen Ming took out the sleeping stone in his pocket and put it on the table. This little guy is just like him who just became a psychic before. He can't hide his psychic fluctuations by himself. The president stared at the stone for a few times, recalled and said, "Is this the pet mouse of Fan Chao's laboratory? Well, I picked it up and kept it with me. I fed it some psychic plants, and it became like this." The president pushed his glasses, covering his facial expression for a moment. He hadn't noticed before that the ship's spirit, psychic creatures, and condensed psychic energy sources, which are very rare and difficult to obtain for any psychic, are all concentrated in one person. Chen Ming seemed to have some special qualities. He was very curious. However, the president did not show it now, and continued to return to the previous topic and said, "Didn't I tell you before that it is best not to condense the second condensed spiritual energy source? Because according to the records, if the psychic continues to try to condense the second condensed spiritual energy source when the first condensed spiritual energy source exists, then the condensation process and the final product of condensation will have a very serious impact on the psychic. The impact will cause a significant consumption of the psychic's mental power if it is lighter." "Serious schizophrenia?" Chen Ming asked. "Is it because the psychic and the condensed spiritual energy source are linked together? The appearance of the second one will affect the psychic's mental power?" "That's what I mean. So if you want to condense the second condensed spiritual energy source, you must dissipate the first one." One thing to note here is that transforming the condensed spiritual energy source into a spiritual stone is not considered dissipation, and it is not considered dissipation if it is absorbed by other things. Only when the spiritual energy really dissipates into the environment and the connection with your mental power is broken can it be considered completely dissipated. So condensing the second condensed spiritual energy source is almost it can be said that there is no meaning. But your situation is relatively special because your condensing spirituality is not your own condensing. You can consider it yourself. I don't give you suggestions. This kind of thing is the first. Do you want me to help? With his current reminder, if Chen Ming really encounters dimensional infection again, he might be able to rely on the ship to nip it in the bud in advance. And there are only 2 dimensional infection experiencers or survivors in the Empire now, so it's no problem to take care of each other. The president said with some sincere gratitude in his tone, "To be honest, my meeting with you should have disrupted your schedule. I'm sorry to bother you more. Your words have helped me a lot. I have been studying that dimension, but that dimension cannot be contacted actively, as you know. So for so long, I can only study what they left behind, and it is difficult to make key progress. But with your words, I have successfully completed some conjecture tests in the past 2 days. Although the progress is still not ideal as before, a little progress is also progress. I must thank you. We can't mate, but we can keep in touch in the future. If you encounter any dimensional infection, or you have any questions about dimensions and space, you can come to me. And I also look forward to your spiritual power after it has been developed to the limit, and come to the association for a systematic physical examination of spiritual power." The communication between Chen Ming and the president ended here. The boss hung up the communication directly after chatting with the president for a few words. Chen Ming, who had stood up next to him, asked, "Is that it?" "Yes, that's it." Chen Ming nodded and said, "Then I should leave soon." "So urgent? Or is it because of that feeling you mentioned?" "Yes. In the past 2 days, especially yesterday, Chen Ming has sacrificed his rest time to speed up his work. The reason is that in the past 2 days, he seemed to smell a little danger. The entire space station has it, but it can also be said that there is no danger. Because Chen Ming only felt a slight danger, but the specific source of the danger was completely unknown. It should be because the danger has a large range, but it cannot pose a fatal threat to him. And this is why he asked Bai Quan about the situation in the war zone before. Only the war zone has the ability to pose a threat to him. So far, this feeling has become more and more obvious and closer. But Chen Ming still has no way to determine the source. The boss also said at this time, "I haven't found any problems here yet, and the same is true for the database borrowed from the administration. After all, the flow of people in the pirate space station is too large, and it is impossible to investigate everyone clearly. So I have to go." Chen Ming did not feel the fatal danger, so he was not too worried about the arrangements in the war zone, but he still planned to leave early. As long as he left, the danger that might spread throughout the space station would most likely be concentrated on him, and would not affect the factory director Lao Wu and others. Then go directly, all preparations have been made. Well, then I'm leaving. See you later. See you later. Chen Ming didn't have anything to pack, so he turned and left the boss and set off for the dock. But on the way, Chen Ming suddenly received a call from the factory director. "Xiao Ming, didn't the director run away before?" "Yes, I planned to wait until his spaceship flew farther before I took action." "What's wrong?" "He just came back again, as if nothing had happened."
What?
Chen Ming was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the director to dare to come back when Chen Ming showed a threat. He stopped immediately. It wasn't that he suddenly wanted to go back and kill the director. But after hearing the factory director's words, he was already very close to the edge of the gate of the number 1 space arm. At this time, he finally accurately sensed the source of danger. Not in front, but behind. Chen Ming turned his head and saw a figure looking around on the street next to him. He exuded a sense of danger that Chen Ming could accurately locate. It could even be more accurately located that the source of danger in his body was in his chest and abdomen. Chen Ming could be sure that this person was not a psychic, so the weapon that could bring him a sense of danger must be hidden here. However, this sense of danger was not the stinging pain of a gun, but a kind of danger that enveloped the whole body. This familiar feeling. Damn, it was Wujing. Chen Ming immediately said to the factory director, "I have something to do here, let's talk later." Before he finished speaking, a set of streamlined solid power armor appeared on Chen Ming's body. And the Wujing member who was slowly approaching Chen Ming guessed that Chen Ming had discovered him the moment he saw Chen Ming's movements. His eyes, which were not covered by the mask, showed great enthusiasm, and he stepped forward and pounced on Chen Ming. In the next moment, he was hit in the forehead by the electromagnetic javelin that suddenly appeared in Chen Ming's hand, and was directly killed. However, after he fell to the ground, the explosion still occurred. The fierce fire and smoke covered Chen Ming, and the aftermath impact also hit Chen Ming without hindrance. However, this did not cause any harm to Chen Ming under the protection of the Locust power armor. But this explosion was not as simple as the previous shot in the bar. The violent explosion spread at least half of the space station, and the impact was definitely not as easy to deal with as before. And, with the fall of this left-handed molecule, Chen Ming noticed that there were also scattered explosions in other parts of the space station. The dock entrance of the number 1 space arm where Chen Ming was located suddenly became chaotic. Some people wanted to enter the space station to find out what happened. Some people wanted to turn back to the spacecraft and quickly leave this place of trouble. But more people were frightened by the sudden violent explosion at the gate and ran around in panic. Fortunately, Chen Ming's combat power armor and the sniper rifle in his hand exuded an extremely dangerous aura. And most people with eyes could see that Chen Ming was the fuse of this incident. So no one dared to approach Chen Ming and only dared to walk around him. But at the same time, Chen Ming found several sources of danger in the chaotic crowd, all of whom were left-handed with explosives, slowly approaching him in the crowd. Besides the direction of the dock, Wujing's figure could be seen in several streets around, and he had been surrounded without knowing it. If Chen Ming didn't want several bombs to explode in the crowd, he couldn't fire at will. But looking at the direction in which Wujing was blocking him, it was obvious that he was forcing him to go to the dock. Chen Ming didn't want to do what they wanted. You know, the Locust power armor can fly. Chen Ming once again ignored the flight control regulations of the space station, turned on the jetpack to the maximum power, and rushed straight into the sky. However, as soon as he flew up, he found that the two calibers erected on the tops of different buildings nearby were almost comparable to the electromagnetic cannons of half the size of Chen Ming's palm. It was a very obvious military model, and it was already accumulating energy. Fuck, how did you set it up? Chen Ming cursed in his heart. He had no time to fight back against the operator of the electromagnetic cannon. He could only adjust the position of the jetpack immediately, and the reverse jet made him land on the ground. While instantly using the jetpack to offset the impact, he turned around and changed his body direction and rushed into the only dock with a shelter. In addition to training his mental strength, Chen Ming's physical training has also been somewhat effective. At this time, he didn't care whether he should go to the dock. He could only rush to a place where there was no danger. Anywhere else outside the dock would be covered by the electromagnetic gun, and he had only this one choice. At this time, the dock was even more chaotic than outside, and most of the spacecraft were not operating according to the normal departure rules. There were more collision accidents in the past few minutes than in the previous few months combined. However, Chen Ming only took a look and went directly into the maintenance plant next to it. Although the door of the maintenance plant was closed at the moment of the explosion, it was relatively easy for Chen Ming to open the door. And since he had already come in, he simply walked directly through the passage of the maintenance plant next to the dock and went to the area where the cruiser was stationed. There was no one in the maintenance plant at this time, and they should have retreated quickly through the employee passage. Chen Ming didn't have to worry about the safety of the people he knew and rushed all the way to the highest point. At least the cruiser under his complete control was definitely not something that Zhu Jing could easily break through. However, Chen Ming did not drive away directly. Instead, he hacked into the network of the administration through the back door he had left in the administration before and began to confirm the news from the administration. At present, small-scale explosions have occurred in various parts of the entire space station. Although the specific damage is not large, some important locations have been attacked, especially the power generation area, which is very important for the space station. If it is shut down here, countless people living on the space station may die. The only good news is that there is no problem with the boss of the number 2 space arm and the space station administration building itself. But the overall situation of the space station is still not optimistic. Obviously, after the last time, the space station has better protection measures and the network security system has been upgraded. These are all clearly recorded in the space station database. But now it has been infiltrated. Chen Ming's mind flashed the 2 military-type electromagnetic guns he had just seen outside the dock. The size of this thing is not something that can be brought in casually and then set up. There is obviously something wrong here. Chen Ming continued to rely on the backdoor program to go deep into the various databases of the space station, trying to find the answer in them. The director, who had returned to his office and was smoking, had a stiff face. Just a few minutes ago, the panic and fear in his heart caused by Chen Ming's arrival had dissipated completely. But now, when he received negative news from all over the space station, he knew that he had caused a big disaster. Unconsciously, the cigarette in his mouth fell on the carpet. It was not until the stunned director asked about the slight smell of burning that he reacted and quickly stepped on the cigarette butt. His body was shaking a little. The loss of important equipment in various places had been roughly estimated in a very short time and delivered to him. He looked at these reports with sweat on his forehead. This was different from what he had agreed with that person before, and this kind of thing should not happen now. What about their credibility? What about the credibility of the military? The cold sweat on the director's forehead was getting more and more. In the end, there was only one thought left in his mind. He had to go. The director hurriedly began to pack up his things. At this time, Chen Ming, who was looking for the truth of the situation in front of him on the network of the administration, suddenly felt a danger from the entire dock. The danger was obviously close at hand, but the source was still unknown. But as long as there was a ship, everything would be fine. Start the shield, start the engine, and keep it suspended. When Chen Ming was performing these operations on the Supreme Point, he also reminded the brilliant side. But then, a scene that he was very familiar with happened. The pseudo-gravity generator on the dock side had a malfunction, and the entire dock entered a state of weightlessness. This meant that the power output of the engine that Chen Ming had just started was deviated. Chen Ming had no time to adjust, and the tail of the Supreme Point, which was not protected by the shield, hit the top of the dock, just like the Nova at the beginning. And similarly, the engine of the Supreme Point was also damaged. Chen Ming had never expected that the means he used against the Nova at the beginning would be returned to him. However, he was not afraid. The maintenance spirit was activated, and relying on the materials he stored on the ship, the damaged armor and internal engine of the Supreme Point were restored to their original state almost instantly. After doing this, an idea popped up in Chen Ming's mind. Even the pseudo-gravity generator could be destroyed. There was an insider. And at this moment, the dock was suddenly attacked directly from the outside. The position where the highest point just hit was instantly destroyed by the attack from the outside, revealing the appearance of the starry sky. The chaotic gravity, leaking air pressure, and the attack on the inside of the dock caused a large number of spaceships originally parked on the dock to scatter and hit various parts of the space arm. The degree of chaos was even more terrible than when all the spaceships were squeezing out just now. And the explosion inside the space station is still ringing uninterruptedly. Chen Ming couldn't estimate how many people came to Zhujiang and how much explosives were laid. This situation is not right. The shield of the space station did not protect the dock in place. If Chen Ming chose to stay where he was, he would definitely be a target. He might really have to go out. Chen Ming is hesitating now. He can actually leave directly through the jump engine. But there are still many people he knows in the space station. Although the boss is there may be no problem, but he doesn't want to be a deserter. So he stayed. He wanted to find out what's with Jing, and the war zone wanted to force him to do. Just when Chen Ming was about to drive his ship out, the factory director called again. "Xiao Ming, is this okay?" Chen Ming immediately responded, "I'm on the spaceship now. How about you?" "Old Wu and I are in the administration bureau. Old Wu is also here, and I evacuated the people in the maintenance plant in advance, and no one died. But the entire space station is in chaos now, and many monitoring devices have been left with backdoors." "No, I'm not talking about you. Anyway, it's other backdoors, and there's a problem inside the administration bureau." The factory director was a little incoherent for a while, but Chen Ming could understand. "I can see that the gravity simulating system on the dock has been destroyed. Have you found the insider?" "Not confirmed yet." Just when Chen Ming wanted to ask if there was any suspect, he suddenly saw that the temperature and oxygen concentration outside the dock shown on the detector at the highest point began to drop sharply. It was not caused by atmospheric leakage, but by the shutdown of the life support system. The life support system is not here. The only possible reason for this is that there is a problem with the power supply. Chen Ming immediately asked, "Can the power supply of the space station be guaranteed?" The factory director is very familiar with the situation of the space station and said, "Yes, the power generation equipment of the space station is evenly distributed in different space arms. There are also quite a lot of solar panels outside the space station that are supplying power. Even if all the power generation areas on the space station are down, it can still rely on solar panels to continue to support for a period of time. Some civilian equipment and facilities in the space arm must be turned off to ensure that the life support system of the city in the middle can continue to be maintained." The factory director's words made Chen Ming realize one thing. The other power generation areas on the space station have been destroyed, and only the external solar panels are still supplying power. Otherwise, how could the life support system of a place like the dock be shut down? Chen Ming can send a robot with the afterglow core installed to a power generation area of the space station. He doesn't need to protect the space station, but he must protect the people he knows. 10 seconds after sending out the robot, Chen Ming suddenly said, "Have you seen the director? I mean the current director." "Not sure. He disappeared just now." "Then the traitor is him." Just now, Chen Ming successfully found some erased traces in the database of the dock. There is also the deleted record of the cargo ship that was specially approved by the director and did not need to be inspected. One record and one ship do not mean much. But this record was not deleted through formal authority, but through the authority of the director and some special means. And, even more outrageous, Chen Ming also found that dozens of similar records were hidden. All the time was concentrated in the last 2 or 3 days. Chen Ming felt that there was no need to say anything. This was already very obvious. The director wanted to delete the records of these cargo ships entering the port and then asked someone to manually delete them privately. The person who deleted the records casually entered the network of the administration with the help of the director, obtained the authority, deleted the dozens of problematic records reported later, and then left a backdoor in it. No one with enough status was responsible for solving the problems reported in these records. These records just disappeared so simply, and no one was in charge. Chen Ming was really a little overwhelmed. Someone in the administration seemed to be eating free rice. Even if there was a backdoor left at the beginning, it shouldn't be possible to delete dozens of important records without being able to find them, right? Chen Ming saved this discovery and sent it directly to the factory director, saying, "Show it to the people in the network management department, they can understand it." The factory director did not do what Chen Ming said immediately, but said, "The internal network of the administration seems to have been infiltrated. We don't understand these things, so we can only wait here." Chen Ming couldn't help but belittle the network security department of the administration again in his heart, and then said to the factory director, "Wait for me." He hacked into the network of the administration again, intending to help the administration regain network permissions. While doing this, Chen Ming asked the factory director, "What did the boss say?" Lao said to wait a little longer, and he will take action when we can't handle this matter completely. Well, Chen Ming felt a little relieved. At least now the boss was there. He had a bottom line in his heart. Soon, Chen Ming reopened the permissions to the administration and said, "Okay, it's done. I'll get the network permissions of the administration back for you." Not only did he get it back, but he also understood why the internal permissions were in this situation. This is obviously military hacking technology. The network security of the administration must be strengthened. No wonder your people can't get back the authority. How could the people of the Space Station Administration Bureau be better than the military technology, and there is a backdoor left through the director's authority? It's just like the guards who are desperately trying to stop the intruders, but they turn around and find that the house they are protecting has been moved outside the wall. The door is wide open, and there is no defense at all. Although the main power of the space station is still in the deputy director. But a director of the Space Station Administration Bureau has some authority. He is an insider, which can only be said to be a rare thing that the space station has not changed hands directly. You also understand military technology? Well, I understand a little. I'm a little busy here. Let's talk about it later. Chen Ming hung up the phone with the factory director and released a robot with a gamma core installed again. The place where this robot is going is near the approximate location of the hacker that Chen Ming just located. Chen Ming currently only has a partial grasp of military hacking techniques, so he was unable to pinpoint the hacker's location. However, the approximate location is still fine. It is better to send a robot to search than to do nothing. As Chen Ming released the second robot with a core installed, the external attack on the dock was gradually subsiding. The dock was basically riddled with holes, and most of the people here had already left. Those who did not board the spacecraft or escape to the space station were either killed by the outside attack, or were killed by the flying unmanned spacecraft and various debris, or suffocated by the atmospheric leakage caused by external damage. In practical terms, it was no different from leaving. However, there were still a few people wearing full sets of protective clothing hiding in various hidden corners in the dock. Although they could not avoid Chen Ming's gaze, they could avoid the firing range of the weapons that the highest point in glory could use in the dock, which was a relatively small space compared to the cruiser. There was no way to use it in the large weapon dock. Although Chen Ming tried to send out robots to deal with them, even if he dealt with one, several more would immediately come out from some unknown corner of the dock. Although the robots were used to slowly clean up with very low efficiency. During this process, he could only be monitored by these people. However, Chen Ming suddenly discovered something else. Although the attack outside the dock had stopped, a destroyer was approaching rapidly outside. It was obvious that the authority of the administration had just been hacked, resulting in the defense measures outside not being activated at all, and it was highly likely that the shield had not been opened in time. So these spacecraft had the opportunity to get close. The ship that Chen Ming saw at this time was Zhuo Jing's self-destruct ship. Even if the administration had regained its authority with the help of Chen Ming, it would not have had time to react. Chen Ming knew that he could not stay in the dock any longer. If he didn't leave, the dock would explode and his 2 cruisers would also be affected. Chen Ming immediately started up several ships that he had parked inside the repair shop and followed behind the highest point. Then Chen Ming adjusted the direction of the highest point so that it faced the exit of the dock and started a tachyon spear in front of it. The turbulent particle torrent instantly destroyed the Zwajing self-destruct ship outside. At the same time, it also cut a scratch with molten iron flowing at the exit of the dock. With the impact of the explosion of the self-destruct ship, the exit of the dock was instantly twisted into a weird shape. Fortunately, the dock was not completely damaged, and Chen Ming's 2 cruisers were still able to leave smoothly. But this also means that Chen Ming was indeed forced to follow the ideas of the people in the war zone and Zwajing. And when Chen Ming's ships flew out of the dock, the sensors of the highest point were fully activated. Then, Chen Ming saw an unknown fleet staying outside. But it is obvious that this is the fleet that Zwajing received funding from the war zone. Chen Ming saw a total of 4 cruisers at a glance, and more than a dozen large weapons were aimed at the highest point and the glory. And Chen Ming was already within their range, and this fleet could open fire at any time. Sure enough, all the foreshadowing in the front was to force Chen Ming to come out and fight this fleet head-on. Then Chen Ming knew what he should do. As long as he jumped away, the fleet would definitely follow. The security of the space station was at least guaranteed on the outside, and only the inside had to be handled by the administration itself. However, as Chen Ming came out, the fleet did not continue to attack Chen Ming as it had just attacked the dock. Instead, it stopped in place, and it could be said that it did nothing except using some intrusion signals that were casually blocked by Chen Ming. Oh no, they did another thing. Chen Ming looked at the communication request on the highest point in front of him, which was obviously sent by the fleet he was facing. But Chen Ming still had a lot of confusion in his heart at this time. Didn't Zwajing and the war zone investigate his psychic power carefully before they started? He was capable of multiple jumps in a short period of time. But they didn't prepare anything that could interfere with the jump engine. Did they think he had no way to escape? Before, Yuhui didn't make any preparations in advance, so it was normal that he couldn't stop Chen Ming. But now the war zone and Zwajing obviously had a plan in advance. But they just didn't prepare anything in this regard, and I don't know what they were thinking. Wait, it doesn't seem right. Chen Ming suddenly realized that he didn't seem to have shown the ability to quickly cool the jump engine through maintenance for the next jump. Then he was relieved. He didn't even plan to leave like this. Because now is a rare opportunity, an opportunity for actual combat. Of course, just in case, Chen Ming still contacted Bai Quan directly and sent him the situation here. Bai Quan, who had already set off to other star fields to participate in his own promotion ceremony, was relatively free. He quickly responded, "What's the situation?" "War zone, Zwajing." "Got it." Seeing that Bai Quan quickly understood what he meant, Chen Ming continued to say according to his idea, "I originally wanted to jump back directly, but the people from Zwajing or the war zone seemed to want to talk to me, so I didn't do it right away. I feel this is a good opportunity for me to personally experience a cruiser-level battle. Then I will contact you, and I hope you can guide me later." Bai Quan, although I don't know where you get the confidence to win, and I have never seen any serious student fight a cruiser-level battle before starting to learn command. But it's okay. I need the situation on your side and the detailed data obtained by the sensor. Also, remember to guard against electronic warfare. Chen Ming immediately turned on the sensor at the highest point the data was transmitted to the terminal and sent over with psychic power, and then asked, "What is electronic warfare? I have heard of this concept, but I don't quite understand it." Bai Quan patiently explained to Chen Ming, "Electronic warfare can be regarded as an invisible battlefield. The warring parties use their own specialized electronic equipment or electronic warfare-specific spacecraft to interfere with the weapons and shield systems of the other fleet, as well as the internal communication system. Generally speaking, it is necessary to do so only at the cruiser level. After all, a little interference at the cruiser level will affect the output efficiency of large weapons, and it will be too inconspicuous for small boats. And in normal battles above the cruiser level, the battle line will be very long, so electronic interference is very necessary. Didn't the other side invade you? At this point, Chen Ming instantly recalled the invasions that were just blocked by his psychic power. It seems that there are, but my spaceship, I make the decision. Bai Quan couldn't help but say, "You're really abnormal. Your psychic power can make this kind of critical factor in the battle of advanced ships directly invalid. If you know the technology of electronic warfare, the opponent will be beaten by you unilaterally." Okay, I have no problem here. You take command and I will help you confirm the problem. In fact, I don't have much to teach. If you don't have the basics, command technology basically depends on intuition, that is, talent. Only when you have learned the basics can I explain it to you in detail. Let's leave it at that for now. I have also notified the people left behind in my base, and a support fleet will be organized soon. If necessary, I will let them jump over. Bai Quan's words suddenly reminded Chen Ming that before, Yu Hui was about to attack the space station, but the Star Zone military still approved it for 3 days. So he asked, "Don't you need to approve it?" "I approve myself?" "It's okay." After Chen Ming and Bai Quan finished talking, Zhuojing's fleet sent a second communication request again. They seemed to want to say something to Chen Ming, but Chen Ming had no intention of talking to a madman. It would be better to pay attention to the situation of their fleet. This fleet of Zhuojing is not weak or very strong, and the number is obviously proportional. For cruisers, more than 50 destroyers, and more than 200 escorts. Even if we don't look at the low-level ships, the 4 cruisers alone don't look like they can be defeated by Chen Ming's 2 cruisers. No wonder Bai Quan would doubt what Chen Ming is thinking. Compared with such a fleet, Chen Ming's side is much more shabby. 2 cruisers, brilliant and supreme. 1 destroyer, refraction. 4 escorts, fighter kai, storm, and 2 centurions. The combat effectiveness can be said to be quite different. And at this time, because the second communication was not connected for a long time, it was automatically hung up. The Zhuojing fleet finally stopped waiting, and the dozens of large weapons of the 4 cruisers opened fire instantly, almost completely covering the 2 cruisers, facing the concentrated fire of the left axis fleet. The plasma burst thruster of the Brilliant was activated instantly, and it moved horizontally for a distance instantly. Only a thick laser and a few long needles fired by the Storm Needle pierced the corners of the shield. This increase in radiation energy is not even a fraction of the total radiation energy possessed by the Brilliant. The Supreme Point next to it did not have the mobility of the Brilliant class and could not dodge all the attacks, so it could only take about half of the concentrated fire damage. Fortunately, Chen Ming had already activated the shield in advance when he was in the dock. As long as the attack of ships of the same level did not instantly overload the Supreme Point with 20,000 radiation energy, which was higher than that of the Brilliant, he could rescue it. And when it was hit, Chen Ming also found that the shield effect of the Supreme Point was very strong. In addition to the higher upper limit of radiation energy capacity, its radiation energy growth rate when attacked was also slower than that of the Brilliant. There is a concept called shield effectiveness or shield strength for the spacecraft shield. When the shield is attacked, it will convert the damage into radiation energy. The shield efficiency can change the efficiency of this conversion. The better the shield, the slower the radiation energy growth when it is subjected to the same attack, which is equivalent to the shield itself absorbing more damage for the ship's power grid. Usually this will lead to an increase in the energy consumption of the ship, so the designer of the shield needs to find a balance point in it. But the shield at the highest point is different. Even if it has a shield efficiency that exceeds that of other cruisers, it can maintain the same level of energy consumption when the shield bears the same damage and the radiation energy growth is less. The shield of this exploration ship is obviously very special. Except for the main battleship, Chen Ming doesn't know which ship has a stronger shield than it. The psychic from Tachyon technology seems to be technically okay. Such a person is not successful within Tachyon technology. I'm afraid he has offended someone. An irrelevant thought flashed through Chen Ming's mind, and then he immediately turned back. Now is not the time to think about it. At least in his first encounter with the Zhuojing fleet, he was unscathed. And because of the effect of Chen Ming's psychic power, He could ignore the limitation of radiation energy dissipation and forcibly dissipate the hard auxiliary energy that could not be dissipated when the shield was still on. In other words, just like all the spaceship battles Chen Ming had experienced before, as long as his mental power could hold up, he would be unscathed and undamaged. And although the frontal strength of Chen Ming and the Zhuojing fleet was very different, but he was not without help, and there was a pirate space station behind him. No, it should be said that it was in front of him. After the round of concentrated fire from the Zhuojing fleet just now, Chen Ming quickly controlled the highest point to sweep around in the direction of the small ship on the opposite side. Then, he hid behind the space station he had just flown out of. Chen Ming also had the help of the space station. The space station also strengthened security after the previous attack by Yu Hui. Now that an external fleet is attacking, especially Zhuojing's fleet, they must help. Even if the company has no intention of reuniting with Chen Ming, they must help. Not to mention that Chen Ming just helped them regain control of the network. Although the space station still does not have its own cruiser for the time being, ordinary ships are still useful. Even though the dock was just destroyed, the patrol team of the space station uses its own dock. This thought just flashed through Chen Ming's mind. The sensor received the sound of an explosion inside the patrol team's dock. Chen Ming was silent for a moment and found that there seemed to be no follow-up movement from the patrol team's dock except for that explosion. It seems that there was no big trouble. The patrol team quickly handled the matter and immediately dispatched about 30 destroyers and more than 100 escorts to support Chen Ming. Chen Ming quickly established a communication connection with the fleet of the space station. Chen Ming didn't know the commander of the fleet, but it seemed that he had participated in the last Yue raid and survived. With these ships, Chen Ming can indeed share some pressure. In addition, the space station itself is not only a shelter for Chen Ming's 2 cruisers, but also a huge cruiser-class fortress in terms of output. Its size and the number of large weapons that match its size determine this. Such a giant fortress has almost no disadvantages except that it cannot be moved. Of course, being unable to move is a huge disadvantage in itself. The commander of the fleet suddenly asked Chen Ming at this time, "Mr. Chen Ming, do you need us to follow your command?" For Chen Ming, who has no command experience and command skills at all, commanding these ships that he does not control through orders is obviously a suicidal act. However, he did not refuse directly, but said, "Yes, I need you to take good care of the space station. Don't let the small boats approach the space station to disperse the firepower and protect the space station." Chen Ming also needs the space station to help cover him, and he also needs the people on the space station to survive. Although the boss may take action if the space station is damaged to a certain extent, but Chen Ming still doesn't want to fall into this situation. Bai Quan, who has been watching, interrupted at this time and said, "Protecting strategic targets is usually the first priority on the battlefield. As long as you can protect the space station, you have the capital to fight head-on." Bai Quan's words were just a comment, and he didn't mean to command. Chen Ming didn't reply, and continued to control his several small boats to disperse from the back of the space station according to his own ideas. These small boats will disperse to the edge of the galaxy, as if they are going to retreat through hyperspace. Chen Ming's idea is to attract the attention of part of the Zhuojing fleet through these ships. Although Zhuojing had been monitoring Chen Ming before, Zhuojing did not have the ability to guarantee 100% that from the time Chen Ming entered the dock until now, he had no chance to contact those small boats. In other words, Zhuojing must take care of those small boats. Otherwise, if Chen Ming escapes on the small boats, their trip will be a complete waste. Soon, Chen Ming's 5 small boats each attracted a destroyer and 5 frigates, and gradually left the intersection of the battle lines. These 6 ships are the number of ships that Zhuojing believes can directly destroy a Chen Ming ship. But at the same time, it is also the number of ships that Chen Ming believes can be killed when his psychic assistants can do multiple things at the same time. Chen Ming believes that the Gladiator and the Storm class will never be at a disadvantage even if it is one on many. But Chu Guang and the Centurion will have to fight for a while longer. However, the battle of the small boats is not the key now. The key to winning this battle lies in Chen Ming's 2 cruisers. When Chen Ming's ship has the space station as a cover, he can also output steadily. Although Chen Ming only has 2 cruisers in total, and the opponent has 4. 1 ruler, 2 defenders, and 1 eagle class. They are basically representatives of strong frontal firepower. But at this time, when the brilliant class had the opportunity to output, it burst out with irresistible strength in frontal firepower output. Even though brilliant is not a combat-type afterglow, but with the terrifying frontal firepower of the brilliant class itself, plus the additional increase brought by the auxiliary system, and with the blessing of Chen Ming's spiritual energy that continuously provides repairs and rapid cooling. On the front battlefield of the cruiser confrontation, it was the Zhuojing fleet that was suppressed by Chen Ming. 4 speed lances emitting the dark green of plasma and the iconic azure light of afterglow energy weapons came one-on-one, suppressing the 4 cruisers on the Zhuojing side and completely unable to fight back. While Brilliant suppressed the cruiser, Chen Ming completely ignored any tactics and reason and poured all his firepower on other low-level ships. The 2 tachyon spears located directly in front of the highest point, and the Locust, large short-range missile launcher on the side of the ship specifically targeting small ships, are simply the strongest weapons for clearing out the mess. The iconic deep purple particle torrents of the 2 human tachyon spears constantly swept around the 4 suppressed cruisers that could not fight back. A large number of micro-locust missiles almost covered 1/3 of the entire battle line. A series of fireworks exploded in the battle line of the left axis. Chen Ming's 2 cruisers actually played with the momentum of 4 cruisers, and the actual firepower output is indeed comparable to that of 4 cruisers. In addition to Chen Ming himself doing things, the space station has now completely activated the defense system. The shield was deployed, and the large weapons outside the space station were also continuously helping Hui Huang suppress the opponent, giving greater pressure to the cruisers that were already about to collapse. For a moment, no one knew which side was the stronger one. Bai Quan fell silent at this time watching Chen Ming's actions. He originally thought that this would be a fierce battle. The gap in strength between the 2 sides can be said to be quite disparate. Even with the support of the space station, the overall strength gap has not been narrowed much, and it is still a situation of few against many. After all, Zhuojing and the war zone have the advantage of taking the initiative, and they have paralyzed the space station for a period of time. He should be able to say a few words here and guide Chen Ming to achieve some results. Then help Chen Ming find an opportunity to retreat at the last moment, and the battle will be over. But now, he just said a comment that can't even be regarded as guidance. The situation on the battlefield has begun to be one-sided. Looking at the 4 dark green and azure intertwined, almost non-stop particle torrents of the tachyon spears in front, Bai Quan didn't know what to say. But this is exactly what all commanders want to see. If you can suppress the opponent with frontal firepower, there is no need to conduct any command operations. Winning is the best result. After observing for half a minute, Bai Quan had already concluded that the balance of victory was tilting towards Chen Ming. However, just when Bai Quan had this idea, in Zhuojing's fleet, the only ruler suddenly turned off its shield. Relying on its extremely heavy armor compared to ships of the same level, it directly started a counterattack and rushed to the front of the battle line with brilliant firepower. Just like the offensive class that Bai Quan commanded before, the first bird to stick out gets shot. Chen Ming knew very well what the best solution was in this situation. He immediately stopped destroying the remaining small spacecraft of Zhuojing and turned to focus on the ruler that was rushing forward. Although the ruler has extremely thick armor, it is not a perverted existence like the offensive class that can use armor to resist main weapons. No cruiser could withstand the concentrated fire of the plasma-enhanced tachyon spears with armor alone. But what Chen Ming didn't expect was that this seemingly ordinary ruler just withstood the concentrated fire of 4 plasma tachyon spears and the 2 tachyon spears of the supreme point next to it, as well as countless micro-locust missiles, plus 8 large live ammunition weapons on the space station and countless other missiles. It just carried the entire front line to approach the space station, giving the ships behind a chance to breathe and counterattack. What the hell is this? Chen Ming had no choice but to quickly let the supreme point and glory avoid the terrifying ruler. His ship must not appear on the route of the ruler. But as the position of the supreme point and glory was adjusted, the ruler also changed its direction of advance. It would rather expose its relatively weak side armor to the firepower of the space station and move towards Chen Ming. It was as if it had already set its sights on Chen Ming. The long-term concentrated fire had no effect at all, and Zhuo Jing's fleet had regrouped at this moment. The fleet pressed forward and could threaten the space station itself at any time. Bai Quan, who had been silent for a long time, finally discovered the problem at this time. He hurriedly reminded Chen Ming, "The ruler is not that hard at all. This is a psychic." In a frame of the picture that Chen Ming broadcast to Bai Quan in real time, Bai Quan found that at a certain moment when the ruler's outer armor was activated and shattered, a layer of metallic film appeared under the armor. A layer of metal coating protected the cruiser just under the armor. Bai Quan immediately sent this frame of the image to Chen Ming and said, "I know this psychic. He must be in that ruler. He dare not come out directly because he is afraid that his identity will be exposed." Chen Ming soon saw the metallic color and asked, "What kind of psychic power does this guy have?" "Metal control. Your fleet can't beat him. The main battleship may be able to kill him head-on, but the cruiser definitely can't." Bai Quan's words finally made Chen Ming remember. The psychic he was facing at the moment was the last time when Chen Ming was intercepted by the ruler of the Star Zone military and was finally taken away by Yu Hui. Later, he specifically asked the boss who was the one who stopped the boss from rescuing him, and the boss finally answered that it was him. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road? No, he took the initiative to come here. Chen Ming made a prompt decision and called the boss directly. It was obviously not shameful to call someone at this time. After all, this was a psychic who could fight against the boss. However, the boss did not answer the phone, and Chen Ming could only hear a busy tone. Chen Ming was a little nervous, but he was not too panicked and immediately called the factory director again. The factory manager answered the phone quickly and said, "Xiao Ming, are you okay?" Chen Ming didn't dare to talk nonsense and asked directly, "Where's the boss?" Old Wu just received a call and said that he had something to deal with. "I don't know what it was, and I can't contact him now." Chen Ming snorted softly and said, "Okay." Then he hung up the phone. Bai Quan suddenly said, "I found out the news here, and it's bad news. 2 psychics went to your place, Mr. Wu, and you should be facing another one." A trace of gloom and anger flashed in Chen Ming's eyes, and he asked, "Who?" "It's not clear yet. I'm still arranging people to investigate. Tell me when there is a result." "Okay." I didn't expect that 2 psychics would come, and they were 2 psychics who could compete with the boss. Chen Ming felt a little pressure in his heart, because this meant that he would have to fight with one of the psychics who could be at the same level as the boss next, which would definitely be very difficult. The boss should not be able to distract himself to protect him next. But Chen Ming was unwilling to just jump away like this. He still had a lot of mental power. He could continue to fight. Moreover, this was also an opportunity for Chen Ming to face off against a powerful psychic. Just like he couldn't miss a cruiser-level battle, he definitely couldn't miss the opportunity to fight a psychic. It was just because of the ruler that the battle line was forced to loosen up. The balance of victory was instantly reversed. Although Bai Quan provided Chen Ming with information, he didn't think Chen Ming had the possibility of winning the battle when both the fleet strength and psychic strength were lagging behind. So he said to Chen Ming, "I think you need to retreat, but I think you can still fight. You can't get a powerful psychic now. If you get too close to him, your spaceship may be twisted into a ball by him." "I know. I won't let him get close to me." As Chen Ming finished speaking, the High Point and the Brilliant class simultaneously performed a short distance jump, pulling away from the ruler. Moreover, the jumps made by these 2 ships also covered up the jump fluctuations from other places that had just appeared here. The ruler obviously did not notice the jump landing point chosen by Chen Ming, and directly turned around and rushed towards Chen Ming's spaceship again. And when it approached the limit of the spaceship's range, in the void around Chen Ming's spaceship, 3 cruisers suddenly appeared: Refraction class, Brilliance class, and Flash class. A total of 5 cruisers. This is the maximum number of cruisers that Chen Ming can control now. If someone who doesn't know sees this scene, he might think that the army and Yu Hui are fighting, and he would never think that this is a psychic and Zhuo Jing in conflict. Of course, Chen Ming doesn't have such a strange idea in his mind now. All his attention has been used to call on mental power. This is the first time that Chen Ming has completely covered his psychic power on the maximum number of ships he can control, and he has fully opened his psychic power without reservation. The highest point, brilliant, radiant, refraction, and flickering. All the large weapons are outputting their strongest firepower to the ruler who has no time to react, like infinite recharge and infinite ammunition. What Chen Ming likes most about the Afterglow ship is that almost all of their large weapons are loaded with tachyon spears. And now, 10 ordinary particle torrents and 4 plasma particle torrents, in the dark space, are like 14 spears piercing through the stars, piercing under the armor of the ruler. At this moment, the damage caused by Chen Ming's cruiser's concentrated fire can almost reach the lower limit of the main weapon. The surging particles penetrated the armor and shattered the metal coating of the psychic. The entire hull of the ruler was submerged by the violent particle torrent and heated to red in the cold space. Without the shield to help share the damage, there is only one thing between the hull and the interior under the armor: extreme high temperature. No one can survive in such an environment. The ruler lost control of all internal personnel and gradually stopped, and its engine part also caught fire under the stimulation of the particle torrent. It exploded in just a few seconds. This is the fragility of the ship itself, not the fragility of the psychic. And this scene does not mean that the psychic is dead. When the ruler exploded, the fragments of the ship that should have been scattered suddenly gathered together. A steel giant appeared in space. With his appearance, the loose battle lines not far away that were destroyed by the battle of ships also flew towards the steel giant. He absorbed the fragments of the broken spacecraft. His body size increased again in a short period of time, and his psychic power to control metal can also allow him to violate the laws of physics and quickly approach Chen Ming's fleet in space without any means of leverage. At this time, in the core of the steel giant, the psychic who controlled the steel giant had a gloomy face. When he first heard about Chen Ming, the psychic, he thought that his psychic power was specifically used to restrain Chen Ming. So after hearing the request from the war zone to kill Chen Ming, he accepted the request without fear or hesitation. And he remained cautious during the battle. Even though he thought Chen Ming's fleet would be directly destroyed under the fire suppression of his fleet, he still maintained the coverage and protection of the ship's armor. His caution helped him once, so that he was not directly beaten out of his original form at the first time. But he did not expect that Chen Ming could call 3 more cruisers in an instant without any warning. A total of 5 cruisers, all of which can use large-scale weapons, tachyon spears, almost completely and continuously without restrictions. With only part of the armor destroyed, the entire cruiser was heated to an extreme temperature like food heated in a microwave. If one of the Flash-class ships had only 3 large weapon slots, 2 of which were Defender Point Defense energy cannons, and only 1 was a tachyon spear, the high-energy particles that just broke through his defense would have attacked the entire ship even faster. He might not even be able to react. But having said that, he did fail today. His ability was exposed here, which meant that his relationship with Zhu Jing was not clear. But if he didn't continue to finish the job, he would not only offend Chen Ming, Wu Wen and Bai Quan, but also many more. So now the psychic is ready to completely give up, just to kill Chen Ming, so that he will offend one less person.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.